Hey, Mark, book's awesome. Read the book. Didn't think I'd read it all as quick as I did. We just got it a few days ago
Oh,
and
thanks.
and
Th-
jammed out. It was awesome. I have some notes actually from specifically from the book that I have listed here. And if you're okay, I would just like to go through my notes about your book.
Totally. Let's go.
Okay, first off, Elton John kissed me on the mouth once, and so it was awesome. And I was at a charity deal, and I was sitting with him, and he grabbed me at the end of a song and kissed me on the mouth, and I was like, "That was awesome." Elton John just kissed me on the mouth. Now, when I read your story, it felt a bit similar. So, a musical hero of yours kissed you on the mouth. True or false?
True. Very true. Do you want to reveal who it is or shall I?
You tell the story behind it, please.
So, when we were recording the Untitled album back in 2003, we had this song that was really cool and a little bit dark. And Tom said, "You know who would sound awesome on this song is Robert Smith from The Cure." And I was like, "Oh, that'd be so cool. I wonder how we get a hold of him." And Tom's already on the phone making calls. And one of our friends was managing The Cure at the time. And so we got Robert Smith to sing on a Blink 182 song. And it was one of the biggest coups of my whole career. Just like a hero of mine, grew up listening to The Cure, hugely influential on a Blink album. So we go to London and we're performing a show and we say, "Hey, Robert Smith, will you come out and perform this song with us?" And he very graciously said yes. And he came to the show and we did the song and we covered Boys Don't Cry. And then afterwards, we were hanging out in the dressing room and I was leaving with my wife. And I went to give him a hug and I said, "Hey, man, thank you so much. It means the world to me that you were here and you were on this song." And then he leaned in and he gave me a kiss on the mouth.
That's awesome. I mean, that's just an
Yeah.
awesome story. And I tell people my Elton John story. They're like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah, it was great." And uh,
That's
yeah. So, question. So you're a self-taught bassist. How do you think that's affected how you play? Meaning, since you taught yourself, it's a little different than like what standard teacher would teach a bass player. How do you feel like
yeah.
that? How do you feel like that's affected like the sound of Blink?
I feel like my technique is terrible, but I feel like I write from a place of joy and I write from a place of, growing up literally playing the Cure songs and playing Descendant songs and Bad Religion. And the way that I play bass in Blink is kind of a combination between a bass guitar and a rhythm guitar because we only have one guitarist. So when Tom would go and noodle things, I was more almost a rhythm guitarist. So I really like playing bass and what it does in songs and what it does in music and what it does in Blink 182.
You grew up as a Navy brat. I'm going from my notes here. You lived in a trailer.
Hmm.
Your dad worked for
I
the U.S.
did.
Department of Defense, designing missiles and bombs. So, what would you see in the house? Was it like I just pictured as I was reading like a architect's kid, but it was about bombs.
Yeah, kind of. I remember one time my dad brought home a steel plate that was about a half an inch thick and was twisted. And what he said that they called it witness plates. And what they would do is they would set up a target in the middle of the desert, which is why I lived in the middle of the desert when I was growing up, because the Navy would test missiles and bombs there. And then they would shoot the target. And then they would have steel plates in circles going out from the target, and they could tell what the damage pattern was. And I thought it would be so cool to take these heavy twisted pieces of metal and create art with them or put them in some kind of an art display because they had literally witnessed such destruction.
Your dad being Department of Defense, but you growing up like you did musically, like having it. Where was he in the "Hey, I want you to do music" or "I don't want you to do music" spectrum?
He was supportive of me doing music. In fact, he bought me my first bass guitar. But when I said that I wanted to play music full time in a band and drop out of college, he was like, "That's cool, but make sure that you have a backup plan." He was a lot more practical than my mom was, who said, "Absolutely, drop out of college. You can go back to college anytime, but you only get one chance to be in a band."
Wow, that is not really the answer I would expect from the. That sounds more like love than parents that are disciplined by their career. Like, it feels like love won that internal battle of parents who want the best for their kid. Because again, if you're in the Department of Defense, that is a job that has, uh, uh that's a dependable job. Like that's
Yeah,
and
totally.
what you liked and what you did. There's nothing there. I mean, you got to be one in a million to have even a career that pays your bills. Yet they still were supportive of that.
Totally, yeah. My parents have always been really supportive, and they've always come to shows. And in fact, my parents are coming. I'm doing this book tour now, and my parents are coming out to the show in San Diego. So I think that'll be really fun to perform this book show in front of them and share the joy with them.
whenever you and Tom met, you talk about. I mean, my favorite part's when you fell. Not that it was funny that you hurt yourself, but it's funny now that you hurt yourself.
It is funny now.
Yeah. So you guys meet. Would you mind telling that story about climbing the light post?
So literally the day that I met Tom was the day that I moved to San Diego from living in the middle of the desert. I moved to San Diego from Ridgecrest so that I could go to college in San Diego. And I was moving in with my mom and stepdad and my sister. So I drove 3 hours to San Diego. I unloaded all my stuff, which was a bag of clothes, a garbage bag full of clothes, a bass guitar, and a bass amp. Unloaded my clothes and sat down and said to my sister, "Well, what the hell do I do now?" And she was like, "Well, you should meet my friend Tom. He's my boyfriend's best friend, and he plays guitar and he skateboards, and you guys have the same sense of humor." So we drove over to Tom's house, went into his garage, started writing songs together, became instant best friends. We were hanging out in his cul-de-sac afterwards, and I was looking at the street light, and it was like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, I bet I could climb to the top of that street light. And nobody really cared. But I climbed to the top of it anyway. I slapped the top of the pole and I started climbing back down. And I jumped off from way too high and I landed on my heels. I didn't break my heels, but I definitely bruised them badly enough that I needed to walk on crutches for 6 weeks. But the great part of the story is the next day I woke up, got a call after I got back from the hospital, and it was Tom saying, "Hey, how do you feel?" And I said, "Well, I'm fine, but I'm on crutches." And he said, "Oh, cool. Do you want to come over and write some more songs?" And then we have been writing songs together ever since.
I have friends that are in duos, and and most of the hits are with one singer. Where you guys actually split it out. We were kind of going through it before you came on. How do you manage? What's the dynamic there of picking who does what?
Tom and I are very liberal with using one another's voices. For instance, Tom will write a song and he'll say, "I think that you should sing this part." Generally, in the past, when we were first writing songs together, if Tom wrote the lyrics to the songs, he would sing those songs, and if I wrote the lyrics, I would write the songs. But there were parts where I'd write something and I said, "I think this would sound better in your range," because Tom has a really cool, aggressive, screamy voice that hits really great in kind of like the upper midsection, and I think that my voice is better suited to like the lower midsection and the deeper section. So we'll write songs with one another in mind like that.
Whenever you guys got your deal, it was because a record label's kid was a fan. Like, how
Yeah.
did that come together, and how did you even know that he was a fan?
He had come to a bunch of shows that Blink were playing when we were playing literally like coffee shops and backyard parties and like little venues wherever we could. And this kid kept showing up, and then we would see him when we were skateboarding. He would end up at all the same spots, and he would say he was a fan, and that his dad ran a record label, and the record label that his dad ran was called Cargo Records. And when we were in San Diego in 1992, that was like the cool record label in San Diego. It had all the cool San Diego bands like Rocket from the Crypt and Drive Like Jehu and all these cool San Diego bands. So this kid's name was Brahm, and he used to take our demo cassette and he was trying to get his dad to sign our band. And his dad's like, "We're not a punk rock label. We're like this kind of nouveau grunge San Diego scene." And his kid was like, "Yeah, but this band's cool." And he kept putting our cassette into his dad's car's cassette player and turning the stereo all the way up. So when his dad got in the car in the morning and started up his car, it was just blasting Blink-182 at him every day until he finally relented and said, "Fine, I'll sign these dudes to get you off my back."
There's a bit of a parallel in the next story where it was pretty cool. We had Ringo Starr here, and Ringo was sitting.
No way.
Yeah, I was so sick. He was sat with me for like 45 minutes, and he talked about how he would play in a band at the same time that the Beatles would play in a club, and so he would play for whatever amount of hours, and the Beatles would play, and then. And we've all heard the story about how Ringo wasn't the drummer, Pete Best was, and Ringo ended up being the
Right.
drummer because he was around and they needed a new drummer. And he also fit what they were looking for, not just in drumming style, but also like sensibilities, right? I think that's
Mhm.
and he admits that. And he was like, I was at the right place, but also I was the right kind of person that they needed in the band. And I was around. So I just started playing with them. And I thought it was such a cool story. And I was reading about your old drummer, Scott, who quit, and that was right before Enema of the State. But where was Travis whenever he was the drummer? Did you know him, and how did that happen?
Yeah, Travis had been a friend of ours for a bit before he joined Blink-182. He had played in a band called Feeble, which was a punk rock band that had played around Southern California. And I'd heard of Feeble and I'd heard of Travis Barker, but never met him until he played in the Aquabats, which was a ska punk band, and we toured together and played a lot of shows together. And then we were actually on tour together with Primus. And Travis used to come and hang out on our bus because we smoked and drank on our bus. And so Travis wanted to hang out in our bus so he could blast cigarettes with me and talk about skateboarding and talk about punk rock bands. And we became friends that way. And then when Scott, we were on tour and Scott, our drummer, got an emergency call that he needed to go home. So he flew home. And Travis, we turned to him and said, "Hey, we're missing our drummer. Can you fill in tonight?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can fill in tonight." We were like, "Okay, well, we have whatever it was, 60 minutes of music for you to learn." He goes, "Yeah, I can learn that." And he learned the whole set in like an hour. We just showed him the songs. I think he was fairly familiar with them at that point from touring with us, and he knew what the structures were. And then we walked on stage with Travis and played a show, and it was really special and really cool. And we were like, "Oh, this feels really good."
So
And then
it was a
when
feeling.
Scott quit, he was the first guy that we called.
Yeah, it was a feeling like you played with Travis and it was like, dang, that actually felt like kind of organically way better than it should being the first time we played together.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we were halfway through the first song, I think, and Tom and I looked at each other like, "Oh, this feels really different and cool." And Travis just has a really awesome musical sensibility, and he became friends with me and Tom, and just fit right in.
A couple other notes from the book that I wanted to ask about before I just ask more general questions, but the story about playing for troops overseas, and it's a double part here. So one, the helicopter, which is wild, and then two, learning about them playing your music at the torture. Like, can you do both of those stories?
So while we were recording the Untitled record, I was reading like a Maxim magazine or some kind of lads magazine from back in the day, and they were talking about how they had the secret forces or special forces, I mean, had like captured suspected terrorists and they had brought them back and they were interrogating them. And the method of enhanced interrogation was that they were blasting rock music at them. And we read in the article that one of the bands that they blasted to interrogate suspected terrorists was our band, Blink-182, which I thought was okay. You're using our music as a means of torture. Awesome. Very cool. And then we actually got invited by the Navy to go overseas and meet and perform for the troops. So we went to Bahrain first to a military base there, a naval base that had submarines on it, nuclear submarines. And so we got to climb around the nuclear submarines, and I got to climb in literally the torpedo tubes for a nuclear submarine. We performed on the Navy base for the sailors and their families. The next day, we flew out to Kuwait City. We landed in these like literally bombed out airplane hangar bunkers. They put us in these forerunners and they tore ass across the desert. And we literally saw like herds or packs or whatever you call them of camels, just wild camels in the desert. We went to the border of Iraq and Kuwait, where the soldiers were just back from the front line or just about to go out to the front line. And we signed stuff and had a meal with them. And then the next day, we went out to the Persian Gulf on a helicopter, landed on an aircraft carrier, the USS Nimitz, and got a tour of the aircraft carrier. We performed for the sailors in the hangar of the aircraft carrier of the USS Nimitz while it was at war. And it was pretty awesome.
So when reading the book, I admired how candid you were. I've written a couple books, and there were times where I'd written things that I felt like were so candid. One, that people, I don't want people to feel sorry for me, but I wanted them to actually feel like empathy or have understanding. And there was a fine line for me. And
Right.
there were also things that like triggered certain things in me. Like it was like a whole therapeutic 4 or 5 months, honestly, to where I
Hmm.
questioned some of the stuff that I left in. Was there any of the stuff that you left in that you questioned for any reason whatsoever, that it was too personal or too triggering, or did some of that stuff actually feel so therapeutic that was positive in the process?
Both. All the stuff that I wrote about anxiety, about self-doubt, about when I was sick with cancer and you know, felt like I was facing death. All that stuff I left in, and I was like, do I really want to put this all out there? Because the same as you, like, I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. I'm very lucky and I'm very blessed. But I feel like when I write from my heart, that that's what connects with people. When I'm writing lyrics or I'm writing songs and I write something that really means something to me, I feel like that's what connects. I feel like that's what I listen to or react to if I watch a movie or read a book or listen to a song. And so I was like, look, I'm going to put it all out there and people can sift through it and ignore it if they want to. But hopefully, instead of ignoring it, they connect to it and it means something to them because I feel like they're pretty universal themes that we all go through.
Yeah, and I learned that even if it wasn't specific to the person reading, I think you said it best. It's a universal theme more than it has to be them relating on a specific molecular level. And there's a difference, right? Can I watch a movie? Same thing you just said. I feel in many ways, but I don't like relate specifically to the exact storyline. But
Right.
there's absolute relatability that makes me happy, sad, angry, whatever it is about the movie.
Hmm.
The same way in the book. Have you had the people that have read the book that you know? What have they come back to you and said, wow, I didn't know even this about you?
Well, one of the things that's happened since the book has come out and since since my cancer story is that people come up to me and they share their cancer stories and I feel really honored. Like even today I was on Good Morning America and one of the producers came and was like, when you were going through your cancer stuff, my mom was going through the exact same cancer stuff and you talking about it or posting about it or being so honest about it helped her through it. And a lot of people have come up to me in the past couple of years and been like, "Hey, my girlfriend or my friend or me, person, whoever has cancer. Like, what do I say? What do I do? What would you suggest?" And so, being able to feel like because I was lucky enough to survive, that I could help other people with their figuring it out because I really didn't have someone like that when I was going through it. I like being the cancer guy that can help people either themselves or with friends or family.
What role did TRL play with you guys' fame?
Oh, it's huge. It was such a special time in music and in our band's career. I feel like at that point, TRL was really undergoing a change. There were the bread and butter, the gold standards artists on TRL, the Britney Spears, Destiny's Child, Christina Aguilera, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, 98 Degrees, all these huge pop acts. But when Blink-182 was at our heyday, coming like up in the late '90s, early 2000s. Rock and roll and punk rock and kind of like that sports metal stuff was starting to break through as well. So it was this interesting time to be popular on a show that was popular for being so poppy. And here's our rock band coming in with like sideways baseball hats and skateboard clothes and big dickies, performing with people who are wearing like Versace and really nice clothes and really professionally trained. And we were just sloppy and dumb. And it was fun.
Was there ever an identity crisis with the band? Because again, you guys shifted music to pop emulating what you were doing. But in turn, because you were so popular, you were now part of pop. You actually led that sound in pop, which that was what you guys weren't. Now all of a sudden, you're not pop, you're punk. And now you're
Mhm.
pop, but because you've changed what pop is.
Right.
Did you guys ever
Yeah.
have man, maybe we should just go so hard and make sure people don't know that so they know we're not pop? Was there ever an identity crisis with Blink?
I think that after Enema of the State and how popular we got and how we were on pop music stations at the time that came to us, and like you said, I don't feel like we changed our music at all, but music had come to us. And so on the next record, Take After Pants and Jacket, we were like, we are going to plant the flag that we are a rock band, that we are not chasing some kind of fame, that we are not chasing some kind of sound. We want to do a post-hardcore, really dark, cool record. And so if you look at all the stuff for Take After Pants and Jacket, we're like wearing all black. We're not smiling at anything. We're looking straight to the camera with our arms crossed, like we are the serious rock band now. Uh, so a little bit of that, but I would like what Take After Pants and Jacket did to us and really focused us on, wait, what are we trying to do? Like, I feel like Enema of the State was kind of our party punk rock record, and then Take After Pants and Jacket was like a lot more dark and vibey.
So I have three extremely cliche questions, and I only have a few minutes left, but three, these are extreme cliche. So number one is going
All
to be,
good.
what is your favorite Blink hit?
Favorite Blink hit? I'll go with Feeling This. Feeling This was the first song that we wrote for the Untitled record. And if aliens ever came down from outer space and said, "What's a Blink-182 song?" I would play that, and I would play All the Small Things. But I think that Feeling This really showcases each one of us in a different way, and it's kind of an artistic take on a traditional Blink-182 song that pushes things in a new direction that we were really excited about when we wrote it.
Second cliche question. What was the best part about Fame and what was the hardest part about Fame?
Best part about Fame is here's the coolest thing that I ever got to do by being famous. When they launched the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, we got invited to the premiere at Disneyland and they shut down the whole park. So the red carpet, the press line was all the way down Main Street. And then we turned left into Adventureland and the whole thing was closed off. And there were literally people at Disneyland begging us to go on their rides because there was nobody else there. So like Big Thunder Mountain and Pirates of the Caribbean and all these great rides we got to ride. And then they premiered the movie on Tom Sawyer's Island on a huge screen, but we were sitting out in front of Pirates of the Caribbean on these cool bleachers. So we watched the movie. And then at the end of the show, at the end of the movie, you walk out and they hand you a video game of the Pirates of the Caribbean video game, and you get in a limo and they drive you down Main Street of Disneyland and then take you home. That was rad. The hardest part, the worst part about being famous, stalker. We had a stalker for a while. That was a bum out.
You wrote about that. Yeah, that sucks. We've had that issue too because it feels like you're not in control. Like I didn't realize that until it just feels like you're not. It's you stay your whole life trying to control everything, and then all of a sudden you're not in control. Like that sucks.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, my final cliche question. How important is it to you that people do lowercase b and the dash in Blink-182?
It's important. I would say it's an 8 out of 10 importance.
Wow.
It's not necessary, but it's like, yeah, that's what it's supposed to be. But how people can write it however they want. People overseas say Blink-182 instead of Blink-182, and it's always a point of contention. We go overseas and they're like, "Well, what are you supposed to say, Blink-182 or 182?" And it's 182 to us, but as long as you're talking about us, that's all we care about.
My producer Mike, you're his favorite band of all time. Mike has got a couple of questions. Mike.
Hey, Mark. Huge fan.
Hey.
I've only ever cried once in concert, and it was in 2023 when I saw you guys play. And it was the intro you did for Adam's song. Like, that's my favorite Blink-182 song. Has that song kind of changed for you from when you first wrote it to now to kind of having a different meaning to you?
I mean, it meant the world to me when I wrote it. It was a song that I wrote at a very dark point during the period of time between Dude Ranch and Enema of the State, where our band was starting to get successful. But I would come home and I would be totally alone and feel alone, and we'd go out on tour and I'd feel fulfilled and whole, and then I'd go home and I'd feel empty again. So I wrote that song, and it meant a lot to me because I was honest with pain and depression. And then as I've gone through life and gone back to that song, and especially when the band got back together after I was sick and we were playing this song that meant so much to me, I would walk on stage and say very honestly, like, this song saved my life once and this band saved my life a second time. It's almost now like it means so much to me that I don't want to play it, and I always find excuses to not play it because I get in my own head when I do.
The other part that stuck out to me about the book, we talked about it earlier, about you begging your dad to get you a bass. Like, I did the same thing because I saw Blink-182, and I was like, I got to play guitar with my brother. He's like, all right, we got to convince our parents. He got a bass. So we learned playing guitar and bass by getting tabs off the internet. For you, what are your top 4 Blink-182 bass lines?
Top 4 Blink-182 bass lines. I would say the bass line in Mutt I love. I would say the bass line in Feeling This that I love. Dysentery Gary is a lot of fun to play. And what's the 4th? Oh, Wishing Well.
Oh, no, Carousel.
Oh, Carousel's a good one. But that one, the intro is hard to play, and I love that bass line. And it's literally the song that Tom and I wrote the first time that we got in a room together. I'll put Carousel in there too. Sure. Let's kick out Wishing Well, and we'll put Carousel in.
I like that Mike changed Mark's mind. That's the funniest thing. Final 2 questions. Were you at all concerned that when you reunited, people wouldn't come?
Yeah, I think always that, but it wasn't about the people coming back. What was important to us was that the 3 of us we're continuing to do what we love, which is playing Blink-182 songs and writing new songs. When we got back together, there wasn't even in talk about like, we're going to tour and play these songs. It was like, we're going to get in a studio and write a new record and keep doing what we love and keep writing new things and keep pushing forward. So it wasn't so much about like, well, you know, we want a bunch of people to come and watch us play shows. We do, obviously, but we want people to come and listen to new stuff as well as old stuff. So yeah, I think that we were less concerned about the people being there and more being true to ourselves.
My final question, you wrote about this in your book, is about you and Tom going from best friends to being not even on speaking terms. So, and you talked about just communicating by email only. Like, what is the communication like now between you two on a personal level?
We text all the time, whether it be about, you know, Blink stuff or just jokes or memes or memories or whatnot, talking about everything really. Like I'll just call Tom up and I'll be like, "What are you doing?" And I called him like last week. I'm like, "What are you doing right now?" And he's like, "Nothing. I'm literally sitting in my yard watching my dogs run around." And so then we just talked about dogs for a while.
So it's now it's just totally normal cool.
Yeah, absolutely. It's better than normal cool. Like, you know, like all brothers again.
The book's fantastic. I hope everybody reads it. Fahrenheit 182 with a dash though. Fahrenheit dash 182. We got to make sure that that's the thing.
Get it right.
Yeah. Fantastic. Hey, massive fan. We're both massive fans. Thank you for the time, Mark. Congratulations on a wonderful book. And just I don't know what else to say except massive fan. I guess I'm not going to see you because you're not here, but massive fan. I'll just end with that. Mark, thank you for your time, buddy.
Thanks, Bobby. Nice talking with you. Really appreciate it.
See you, Mark.